Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Premier talked about a $33 million loan program for student loans. The government's numbers have varied daily and are indeed much inflated. The Premier, in calculating this number, is ignoring the actual loan amounts repaid back each year, as well as the default amounts his government writes off. Regardless, Mr. Speaker, of the NDP math, switching the program from loans to non-repayable grants is the right thing to do. Will the Premier please explain why he will not consider switching from loans to non-repayable grants for students at post-secondary education institutions?
You're always open to new ideas on how to make post-secondary education more affordable while retaining quality for students in Manitoba, which is why we actually put in place a policy that restricts the growth in tuition fees. We have the third lowest tuition fees in the country, Mr. Speaker. Pretty soon we'll have the second lowest tuition fees in the country. We brought forward a graduate tuition tax rebate program, which is available in the third and fourth years. It allows a student who lives and works in Manitoba to get 60% of their tuition back upon graduating and making their choice to live and work in this province. It's the best program in the country, Mr. Speaker. We announced interest-free loans for students in Manitoba so that they can pay down the principal without having interest charges billed on that. And we offer a very progressive bursary program all across Manitoba, Mr. Speaker, often matched by private donations as well. And yes, we have student aid in Manitoba, very significant amount of student aid in Manitoba. Our program is much better than the program offered by the Liberals. They will actually be doing less for students in their program when they wipe out student aid and the other bursary programs that we already have in place, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier is wrong about the Liberal program. He tends to misrepresent things time and time again. If he believes that the interest has been removed from loans, he needs to explain to graduates making their payments every month why they haven't seen any difference in the amount of interest coming off each month. We already know that the Premier and his government can't keep track of dollars well. His credibility for any form of financial accuracy is at an all-time low. Regardless, Liberals have committed to do the right thing and to make the change. Instead of trying to misrepresent the Liberal commitment, why doesn't the Premier make the needed change from loans to grants himself, as a Liberal government would do?
Speaker, the member talks about a $20 million program for students. We give $33 million of bursaries right now in the province of Manitoba. His program would cut the bursary program by $13 million. It's completely ridiculous. It's the same thing he did on the fertility tax credit, a very narrow program, much less than what we're doing for people with respect to that, Mr. Speaker. When you put our bursary program together, our interest-free loan program, our graduate tuition tax rebate program, which is available in third and fourth year, and controls on student fees, Mr. Speaker, and controls on tuition, we have one of the most affordable post-secondary education systems in the country. And, Mr. Speaker, we make sure that it's a high-quality program and available to all Manitobans. University College of the North never existed before, Mr. Speaker. It's now there and in many First Nations and Indigenous communities throughout the North. We've put more during this recession. Our increases to post-secondary institutions have led the country, Mr. Speaker, at a time when Liberal governments in other jurisdictions are cutting university funding. We've increased it, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it would be interesting to know whether the Premier spends more time misleading Manitobans on his own commitments or on misleading Manitobans about Liberal commitments. He's way off the mark. And indeed, the Premier himself cut bursaries by almost half, as a document I tabled on Monday. The real question is not this NDP's government's shockingly poor math skills. It's whether the best approach to help students deal with massive debt is to move from loans to grants, and it is. Why is the Premier so resistant to do the right thing and switch from loans to grants, as a Liberal government will do in Manitoba, while leaving the other supports there?
The member opposite was a part of the federal cabinet. The transfer payments for post-secondary institutions, as well as healthcare, as well as social services, was cut by 39%. That's what he did. He downloaded and wiped out all the support for post-secondary institutions all across the country. We're the only government through this recession which has every single year increased our support for post-secondary education, while having a graduate tuition tax rebate, while having student aid, while moving to interest-free loans, Mr. Speaker. We provide very abundant support to students, and we will look for even more ways to do that. We're never going to stop in our desire to have a high-quality, accessible, and affordable post-secondary education system.